Hello and welcome. Today, we are going to explore one of the most iconic stories in the Bible, David and Goliath. The battle of faith and courage. This story is more than just a battle between a young shepherd and a giant warrior. It's a powerful lesson about trusting God in the face of overwhelming odds, having courage when fear looms large, and understanding that victory comes not by our own strength, but by the hand of God. Join me as we dive deep into this incredible narrative, filled with spiritual lessons that continue to resonate with us today. The story of David and Goliath takes place in a time of conflict between the Israelites and the Philistines. The Philistines were a constant threat to Israel, and their military strength was formidable. In 1 Samuel 17, we find the two armies facing off in the valley of Elah. The Philistines camped on one hill and the Israelites on another, with the valley between them. At the forefront of the Philistine army stood Goliath, the Philistine champion, 1 Samuel 17 verses 4-7, a giant of a man who stood over 9 feet tall. His armor was made of bronze, and the weight of his spear alone was enough to strike fear into the hearts of any man. Goliath was not only physically intimidating, but he was also a seasoned warrior, confident in his ability to defeat any opponent. Every day, for 40 days, Goliath taunted the Israelites, challenging them to send out a champion to face him in single combat. His challenge was simple: choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us. 1 Samuel 17 verses 8-9. The Israelites were terrified. King Saul and his soldiers were paralyzed by fear, unable to find anyone who would dare face the giant. This fear is a reflection of what happens when we focus on the size of our problems rather than the power of our God. In contrast to the fear of the Israelite army, we are introduced to David, a young shepherd from Bethlehem. David was the youngest of 8 brothers, and his father Jesse sent him to the battlefield to bring food to his older brothers who were serving in Saul's army. When David arrived and heard Goliath's insults against the armies of Israel and God himself, he was shocked. How could anyone allow this uncircumcised Philistine to defy the living God? David's outrage wasn't because of personal pride or ambition. He wasn't a trained soldier. He was a humble shepherd. But David understood one thing. Goliath wasn't just challenging Israel, he was defying God. David's heart was filled with righteous indignation and faith. 1 Samuel 17 verses 26-27. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? David asked the soldiers. David's confidence came from his relationship with God and his past experiences. 1 Samuel 17 verses 34-37. When King Saul questioned David's ability to fight Goliath, David recounted how God had delivered him from the paw of the lion and the bear while tending his father's sheep. David said, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." David knew that God had been with him in the past, and he believed that God would be with him again. This teaches us that our past victories in faith build our confidence in God's future deliverance. With King Saul's reluctant approval, David prepared to face Goliath. Saul tried to equip David with his own armor, but David quickly realized that it wasn't meant for him. He couldn't rely on the weapons of man to win this battle. His trust was entirely in the Lord. David went down to the brook and selected 5 smooth stones for his sling. 1 Samuel 17 verse 40. He approached the battlefield armed not with a sword or shield, but with his shepherd's staff, a sling, and those stones. David's choice of weapons highlights the spiritual truth that our strength and victories do not come from physical might, but from God. What seems insignificant in the eyes of men can be mighty in the hands of someone who trusts in the Lord. As David approached Goliath, the giant was insulted that such a small, young boy had been sent to fight him. "Am I a dog, that you come at me with sticks?" Goliath roared. 1 Samuel 17 verses 43 to 44. He cursed David and vowed to kill him, saying, "Come here, and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." But David was undeterred. David's response to Goliath was a powerful declaration of faith. 1 Samuel 17 verses 45 to 47. He said, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel." David knew that the battle belonged to the Lord, and that victory was assured not because of his strength, but because of God's power. As Goliath moved closer to attack, David ran quickly toward him. Without hesitation, he reached into his bag, took out a stone, and slung it. The stone struck Goliath in the forehead, sinking deep into his skull, and the mighty giant fell face down to the ground. In a matter of seconds, the battle was over. David, a young shepherd boy, had defeated the greatest warrior of the Philistines with nothing but a stone and a sling. David then ran over to Goliath, took the giant's own sword, and used it to cut off his head, signifying complete victory. David's victory over Goliath was a turning point for Israel. The Philistines, seeing their champion defeated, fled in terror, and the Israelites pursued them. But this victory was more than just a military triumph. It was a demonstration of God's power and a reminder that faith in Him can overcome any obstacle. One of the key lessons from this story is that God delights in using the weak and humble to accomplish great things. David was not a warrior, but he trusted in God's strength, not his own. This echoes the truth found in 2 Corinthians 12 verse 9, where the Lord says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." When we rely on God, He turns our weaknesses into strengths. Another central theme is the triumph of faith over fear. The entire Israelite army was paralyzed by fear because they were focused on the size of Goliath. David, however, focused on the greatness of God. In our lives, we may face giants, obstacles that seem impossible to overcome. But like David, we are called to trust in God, knowing that He is greater than any challenge we face. Finally, the story of David and Goliath reminds us that the battles we face ultimately belong to the Lord. As David declared, "It is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's." 1 Samuel 17 verse 47. We are not meant to fight our battles alone. When we place our faith in God, He fights on our behalf, and victory is certain. The story of David and Goliath is one of the most inspiring narratives in the Bible. It's a story of faith, courage, and the power of God to bring victory in impossible situations. David's trust in the Lord led to an extraordinary victory, and his example continues to encourage believers today to stand firm in their faith, even in the face of overwhelming challenges. Remember, no matter how big the giants in your life may seem, with God by your side, you can overcome them all. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the story of David and Goliath. If this message inspired you, I invite to share and subscribe for more biblical teachings and stories. Until next time, may God strengthen your faith and give you courage for every battle you face.